Hi, my name is Leanne Sino with Paragon Solutions. I'm a senior consultant in the life sciences revenue management arena. Today, I wanted to share a little bit with you about the quote-to-cash business process, looking at it end-to-end for a specific type of deduction. Today, we're looking at chargebacks as it's applicable to most companies despite size or product portfolio. Today, what we're going to do is break it down into 3 phases. We're going to start with the quote or contract phase. That's typically also referred to as Predeal Analytics. Then we're going to look at the revenue recognition phase, which is very commonly referred to as gross to net. And then we're also going to look at the cash phase. This is post-deal analytics and a lot of accounting and finance activities. Our reasoning for looking at this end-to-end, as we call it, or truly quote to cash, is to make sure that we are capturing all of the different pieces of the organization, all of the different business processes, systems, data flows that are involved in this one process that is really processing a chargeback. It starts over here. We start at the quote to contract phase or the pre-deal analytics phase. A chargeback begins when a customer is requesting a price decrease, increase, it's a new product, it's a new NDC, any type of change in contract terms that reflects an indirect price, so your customer's price, that goes into effect and a chargeback is to be processed up against it. What we see is there's a lot of price offer analysis, a lot of profitability analysis, a lot of cross-functional analysis goes on in this phase. We see a lot of sales and marketing, as well as the contracting group and the finance group working together to ensure that we're not only giving a price to our customer that they will accept, but one that will also fall in line with our forecasting needs and will keep us profitable. Also, during this set of processes within the quote and contract phase, we're looking at a lot of sign-offs, a lot of reviews, a lot of legal review. We're looking at contracts and amendments both on paper and in contract management systems. And there's a lot of sign-off that's required cross-functionally, not only within the contracting group, but also within the finance group as well. This is a very good place to introduce the idea of internal control, documentation, workflows, and standard procedures. Standard procedures will ensure that every change that occurs that's related to a customer contract term changing will happen in the same way. Nothing will be missed. You won't miss a certain contract term or incentive. You won't miss a certain process as to where something will be missed, as far as it won't go to finance and a price may not be approved. It could cause issues with your auditors. Or a price is given that is too low because a certain step was missed and the right information was not taken into consideration. Even when it comes to introducing some system architecture, and we talk about loading the indirect pricing that's associated to that chargeback, there's a lot of control to be put in place here as far as who loads what, separation of duties, sign-offs and reviews. Moving from the quote and contract phase to the revenue recognition phase, or again what we call gross to net, or really the meat of the financial aspect of the quote to cash business process. We start with a lot of payment processing, and then the other end of things is really a lot of reporting, validation, reconciliations, and working with the financial statements to make sure what's starting over here at the quote to contract phase is being translated correctly into payments to the customer and eventually items that post to the balance sheet and the profit and loss statement for your organization. A lot of the processing happens, as you can see, cross-functionally. You're receiving information from the customer and it's ending up back at the customer, whether it be manually, through email, through electronic EDI communication. And you're doing a lot of the processing, and this is broken out depending on your organization, whether it be in the sales and marketing organization itself, whether it be in the finance organization, whether you have this outsourced, whether you have this at a different location than your headquarters. It's all the same as far as the processing goes. Then you see accounting start to get pulled in. Your general ledger starts to get hit by some of these items. So again, in turn, the pricing and the incentives that you're giving here in the quote to contract phase are now truly being realized as credits or debits to your customer, actual payments to your customer. It's within these areas right here, really in the heart of gross to net finance, we call it, in which we're doing that analysis of what you've forecasted and what you've accrued for these items as they move over and are realized in the revenue recognition phase, and measuring them up to see if what you are paying out is truly what you were forecasting for. A lot of downfalls here that we find are that something as simple as you don't have the reporting structure in place, the data architecture in place. A lot of your processing that occurs over here is manual. Therefore, you don't have the data at all in the form that you like, easily accessible, to be able to actually look at it the way that you want and need to, and even drill into. Because when you find issues, favorability, unfavorability, when you're looking at accruals versus actuals, you want to be able to dig into that data and really get into it. That's why it's highly recommended to look into your system capabilities, what type of data you're receiving, how you like to receive it, how your master data lines up against that. So you have to look at your master data, which is your customers, your products, against your transactional data, which is actually this chargeback processing, these chargeback payments that are coming through, and all of the different areas of detail that come across with them. Then we have a lot of cross-functionality here as far as review, results meetings, close, really kind of post-analysis, deciding on closing the books and deciding on what the correct values are to report forward. This we don't see as much as we'd like, but it's something that I'm suggesting here and recommending here as far as pulling in sales and marketing, pulling in contracting, even pulling in your national account directors into monthly or quarterly meetings, depending on when you look at your gross to net results, and start to ask questions like, we see a change here, we see a change there, we're paying out more than we believe we should, here are the facts, here's the data and the reports and the analytics that we've been able to work up here. We'd like some insight from why you think the customer is behaving this way. It's affecting our bottom line. Or how we can maybe expect something coming up the pipeline from over here in the quote to contract phase, how we can expect it next month. Really working that cross-functionality and keeping the entire organization in sync when it comes to your gross to net results. And then lastly, we move to the cash phase. The cash phase is where we don't often think of when we think gross to net or quote to cash. Typically when the payment's been made and the customer's happy and we've posted to a financial statement, we're okay. But what we don't know is a lot of this typically or sometimes comes back at us. And we see a lot of this in disputed deductions, customer deductions. There's a discrepancy somewhere in these prior phases in which we don't realize until we hit the cash phase and your customer's paying on an invoice but truly taking a deduction for that discrepancy. A lot of issues, a lot of pain points of companies I've seen are self-induced by the fact that when a customer is taking a deduction on an invoice and the person that is posting that cash is doing so, they're doing so with lack of detail. They're simply reposting that $50, that $100, without detail as far as what type of deduction this is associated with, or a debit memo number or a credit memo number, not reaching back out throughout the organization and talking to finance and talking to sales and marketing and accounts, even going back to the customer to really find out what that discrepancy is, and therefore clearing it off your financial statement, reprocessing it if necessary, making sure that the input and output data that goes into all of this, into the systems and the processing in your financial statement, are made right and whole instead of just writing that off. So today what I wanted to accomplish was really to take you through the chargeback process end to end, quote to cash, as we discussed, and really look at some of the potential pain points that we've learned from speaking to some of the players in the industry, some of the controls and ways to optimize to avoid those pain points or those pitfalls, and really give you an idea of how to look at your organization and your quote-to-cash business processes, map it out, and decide what your current state is versus what your future state could be. Again, a lot of emphasis on internal control. Think like an auditor. Documentation, a lot of things along those lines, business process maps. To have these things down and standardized is really what's important. Anywhere within these business processes you can implement the use of forms, sign-offs, and approvals is really what, one, your auditors want to see, and it's really going to help your quote-to-cash business process function optimally. Also, just doing what we did here, mapping out your end-to-end business processes one by one, start to finish, across all of your cross-functional organization and all of the different phases that are involved, to make sure you're not missing something, to make sure you can get buy-in from all the groups that are involved. And I think you'll see with that buy-in, you'll get better participation, you'll get more awareness across your cross-functional organization as far as what goes on in each piece of the actual process, and you'll have an overall more successful organization and business process. When something does happen, when something does need to change, when you are ready to optimize and implement, you'll have the groundwork laid out here. So again, my name is Leanne Sino with Paragon Solutions. I'm a senior consultant in the life sciences revenue management area, and I would like to thank you.